Welcome to We Are North Texas, a podcast brought to you by the University of North Texas system that focuses on innovation, compassion, ideas, and accomplishments in our home region of Dallas-Fort Worth. The UNT system is the only university system based in DFW and includes the University of North Texas, UNT Health Science Center, and UNT Dallas. With our heart in North Texas, we transform lives and create economic opportunity through education. Welcome to the We Are North Texas podcast. I'm Paul Corliss, Chief Communications Officer for the University of North Texas system. Today, really excited for our guest. We're welcoming the TV voice of the Dallas Mavericks to the podcast, a man who also bleeds UNT mean green. Mark Followill, welcome to the We Are North Texas podcast.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing great. So you guys kind of got back to work last night with the Mavs' first exhibition, first action, really game action since March when COVID hit. What was that like?
It was great to be back at work. It was exciting. The team looked good, so that was really promising, given the amount of time that they haven't been obviously able to play and very little time to really be able to do something that replicates actual practices. You know, there were individual workouts late May and throughout the month of June, but then they haven't really been able to start practicing until they got down to the bubble in Orlando. So I thought they looked really good. We're doing the games from Dallas. When they get on Fox Sports Southwest, we'll start doing them from their studios in Irving. These first couple of games are webcast just on Mavs.com. So we're doing the games from American Airlines Center. So I would say that was probably, like, for me, like the saddest part of all of it was just the reality of the world that we live in hits when you walk through the catacombs, if you will, of American Airlines Center, when you're walking through the underneath the event level and you just see, all the trash cans and the portable seats that are there and everything that's just stacked up in a way that you can tell that they haven't had to be used or moved around in months. And the reality of the fact that, a venue like American Airlines Center has been rendered, something that you're not going to be doing anything in during the pandemic. That was, you go through it and it was a reminder of the world that unfortunately we live in and all of the people that would normally be buzzing around and loving what they do and making events great there at American Airlines Center that unfortunately aren't working like a lot of people right now. So it was great to be back, but it certainly was not without a degree of sadness of thinking, how things once were in the not too distant past.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of the game, and it felt like summer league to a degree. It looked like that, at least on the screen. What was it like calling the game remotely? Have you ever done that before?
I have. I've done a lot of soccer games like that. FC Dallas, I do those games, and when we do road games, we're never traveling. We did a long time ago, but basically for the last 5 or 6 years, we don't travel with FC Dallas. And then I've done a lot of soccer games for Fox. The World Cup included in 2018, where I was calling the games remotely from Los Angeles while the games were being played in Russia. Other various international soccer games that I've done for Fox have been done from remote studio locations in Los Angeles. And I was a soccer broadcaster on the Olympics in 2016 in Rio de Janeiro. And we did all of those games. My crew did anyway, from the Olympic Broadcast Center, the NBC Olympic Broadcast Center in Stamford, Connecticut. So, this is certainly something that is not unique to me to have to call a game from a remote situation. So I'm thankful for that past experience because that makes this aspect of it a very easy transition.
That makes sense. Well, want to get into a bunch of stuff related to your career, but given the connection to UNT, let's start there. I was reading the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, I guess it was a week or two ago, and Mac Engel wrote a column about you going back to school. You were at UNT, I believe, from 89 to 92, and kind of got off and running in your broadcast career. What brought you back?
Yeah, I hope you didn't look at my transcript and figure out that's how I was there from 89 to 92. There's some things in it I wouldn't want people to see. From kind of tailed off on the grades there at one point in time for a little while. But I got impatient, was looking for an opportunity to start working, and right or wrong, that's what happened, and that's the path that life took me on. So the story of what brought me back is a pretty long and detailed one. But the most direct version I can tell you of the story, Paul, is it's always been something that I've had an interest in, wanted to do. That, as you know, work schedules and travel with the Mavs, and just the oddity of that life and that schedule, and the fact that they're not going to adjust the games based on my account. I got to be there when the game is scheduled, so that makes it kind of hard to adjust for that sort of thing. So just been looking for the opportunity to come one day when things online would line up with something I would want to pursue in terms of finishing up a degree. And the impetus for me was in 2017, having lived in Texas for almost all of my life and many, many frequent trips as a traveler and vacationer to Mexico, and someone who tremendously appreciates the culture of that wonderful country and the great people. I've always had like the ability to get by when it comes to being a Spanish speaker. Get by in the most basic of forms. So I finally stopped making excuses for not having enough time and that sort of thing. And I said, okay, I want to be a better Spanish speaker. So in 2017, I started learning through online classes through Dallas County Community College District, now called Dallas College, as a matter of fact, and would take online classes through El Centro. After 4 semesters of those, it was, okay, well, if I want to go any farther, I'm going to have to go somewhere else. And I just got 14 hours I could transfer in. All of a sudden, I'm going to have, close to 80 hours and maybe I need to see what's going on in North Texas. So I met with some fantastic advisors up in Frisco, as a matter of fact, is where I went the first time, and talked to just, a couple of wonderful folks who have really helped guide me through this process over the last couple of years. And the advisors for the Bachelor of Applied Arts and Sciences program were able to help me put together a degree program. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but basically it's a general studies, liberal arts studies type of degree for working adults. And got a lot of Spanish that I've got on there, and geography and anthropology and history, all the humanities, man. I've got all those covered on my degree plan. So no, that was the impetus for it, was the desire to be a better Spanish speaker. And then after taking those classes, it just really ignited, the enjoyment of learning again. I would hope we're all learning throughout the course of our life, but then learning in a collegiate, scholastic atmosphere obviously is a little bit different than what you're learning, throughout the course of your day-to-day life. It's good to learn at school. It's good to learn in life. My dad, always used to say, son, I got my PhD from UHK, which is the University of Hard Knocks, as he used to call it. There's a lot to be said for that. But of course, there's also an immensely a lot to be said for, formal education and scholastic pursuits at the collegiate and academic level. And it's been wonderful to have that part of me energized and reinvigorated again by this process.
Well, I feel like I've known you for forever from your time on The Ticket, which is such a great local sports radio station that you were a part of the crew for a long time and still come on. And you always talked about UNT and kind of shared that Mean Green had a special place in your heart. What was your initial time like there, in the late 80s, early 90s?
Oh, it was fantastic. And I would not be doing what I'm doing today without my time in North Texas. I'm sure that most people that have an affiliation with North Texas that extends for any degree of time remember Bill Mercer, the great broadcast, voice of North Texas for a long time, and voice of the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Rangers at other times during his illustrious career. And of course, Bill was part of starting the radio station KNTU back in the late 60s. KNTU recently just celebrated their 50th anniversary of being on the air as the campus radio station for North Texas. Bill was part of the creation of that, and Bill was part of just a great group of faculty that not only were important parts of the radio, television, film department. I know we don't call it RTVF at North Texas now. We call it MRTS, Media Arts. But when I was there initially, it was the RTVF department, and Bill was a huge part of that. And teaching sports broadcasting and play-by-play classes, were I not, in his classes in my time at North Texas back then, there's absolutely no way I would be doing what I am now. So from a finishing up a degree and doing that sort of thing, all along, it made the most sense from a, already having hours there standpoint, of course, but also from an emotional standpoint to come back to North Texas and finish it up there. But my time at North Texas was great. I grew up in the local area, went to junior high in Louisville, and then high school in Justin, Northwest High School. A much different and larger, much different and larger school district now than it was when I was there in the late 80s, when we were 1 4A high school, and now I think they're 2 5As and a 6A high school or something like that. It's grown a lot out there in the Justin Roanoke Hazlitt Trophy Club area from when I was there. But yeah, made the drive up 407 and 35W for a lot of days, commuting from home to come to school there in North Texas in the late 80s and early 90s. And it was a tremendous experience then. And that's what made all the sense in the world for that partnership, if you will, to eventually come together again. And it has.
Have you been on campus? I know you've taken your courses online, but have you been on the UNT campus of late? It's changed so dramatically,
Sure.
since your initial time there.
No, I got to come up and got to buy a few things at the bookstore, and have met with a couple of advisors up there. I mentioned earlier, that I've been at the campus at Frisco, but I've also been there at the North Texas campus, and I just can't stress enough, how great the advisors are in the Bachelors of Applied Arts and Sciences program. So I've been there to meet with them, and then I come up every semester and wander around campus. Because I come speak to Hank Dickinson's class, which is the sports broadcast class now that it used to be taught by Bill Mercer. Hank, who's is an associate athletic director at the tremendous athletic department there at North Texas. Hank teaches that class now. So usually I come up there every semester to teach to that class because I want to help young broadcasters and give back to my school. And it's usually like a 6 o'clock or 6:30 class in the evenings, and I want to beat the traffic coming up from Dallas usually. So I drive up kind of early and walk around campus and soak in some of the atmosphere and go by the bookstore and buy a couple of things and buy hats and things like that. So yeah, no, I've had many opportunities to go there. Some things look remarkably similar, and some aspects of it look completely different as well.
You ever get out to Fry Street?
I walk by there. I go. My standard go-to spot now is the Pita Pit right there at the corner. I guess what is it? Avenue A and Fry Street, right? Yeah. So some of that stretch looks much different, and some of it looks very much the same. And just kind of sitting here chatting. I think back to my time. One of the things that is interesting about my time at North Texas initially is, the first thing I came there to do, what attracted me to it initially was not just knowing they had a great broadcast program. Now, that I was a music major there for a semester.
Is that right?
Yeah. So my first semester.
What's your instrument?
The trombone. And in the fall of 1989, played in one of the lab bands. The lab bands go 1 through 9 o'clock. So I made the 8 o'clock lab band. So that kind of gives you an idea. That gives you an idea of what my trombone playing was like relative to other people there at the time to make to be in the 8th of 9 lab bands. I was 8th string on the depth chart, as they would say. So obviously my trombone playing there lasted only a semester. It's an amazing school. The competition level of it obviously then was something I just didn't feel that I was prepared to hack at a young age, and maybe didn't understand all of life's lessons about adversity and persevering and that sort of thing. But things happen for a reason and it all works out. I will say one thing that's really neat about it is that coming back and taking classes here at North Texas for the last couple of years, one of the great classes that the school now has that helps you meet one of your university core curriculum requirements, and forgive me for not remembering in which group this specifically fits, but there's a class, it's MUJS 3400, it's Jazz Studies 3400, and basically it's a class about the history of jazz and its role in U.S. culture and the role that it's played, from, not just from an entertainment standpoint, but obviously from a musical expression standpoint and from a role in the civil rights movement and many aspects of the history of jazz and the culture around it, and the different movements of jazz, West Coast, the Harlem Renaissance, the fusion era, all these sorts of different things. So it was a fantastic class, and it was actually the first one I took when I got back started. So it was really neat to think. 30 years ago, I was a music major, and now I'm coming back to school, and I started because of Spanish. And then the first thing I'm taking in North Texas is a class about jazz. So it's like, where's my trombone? I need to start playing.
What a great path. Do you play at all anymore?
Every once in a while I do, mainly when the guys for the ticket ask because they need a backup horn player for the Ticket Time Wasters band. So every once in a while it happens. I have a trombone out in the garage. I probably should have devoted some more time to it during the pandemic, but instead I've been devoting time to a lot of to classes and history classes and such. So it has
a pretty worthy way to spend your time, I think. Absolutely.
No, maybe at some point, the wifey's obviously at home a lot during quarantine pandemic time too. So I don't think she would be too wild about me deciding that this is the time I need to get really serious about my trombone playing again.
Yeah, I'm learning the guitar, so I can relate. My guest room is next to my girl daughter's room, and she's
yeah.
There's only so many times she can hear me playing "Every Rose Has Its Thorn," which is three chords.
Yeah, it might be a bit of a disturbance if I were trying to work up some pop tunes on the trombone or something like that. So maybe we'll see. We'll see what the next few months and years bring.
Now, when you were at UNT, were you calling high school games? How did you get going from a broadcasting standpoint?
Well, if you worked at KNTU then, you did get the chance to call high school games. For a very, very long time, KNTU had a wonderful relationship with Louisville High School. And so the lineage of Craig Way, who of course now is the great voice of the Texas Longhorns and obviously the preeminent expert in voice from a broadcasting standpoint on Texas high school football, who was seen all the time on Fox Sports Southwest in that regard. So I think Craig Way kind of got that relationship started. And then our pals on the ticket like George Dunham and Craig Miller called those games as well. After me, Rich Phillips, who spent a long time at the ticket and now is the voice of the SMU Mustangs. Doug Anderson, who you see frequently on high school football coverage as well. All of us had a chance to call Louisville high school football. So that was the play-by-play that I did back in the fall of 1991. And of course, North Texas also had a great relationship with Crum basketball for many, many years as well. We would call those games. Just missed out on a year of getting a chance to call a state title for those guys, and missed out on a couple of years of calling a state title for Louisville. But
Louisville.
But that was the play-by-play.
Wishbone back in the day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a lot of our viewers and listeners of the podcast may not know what the wishbone is, but Louisville ran it very effectively in the time that we were calling games on KNTU. And of course, there were other opportunities to do women's basketball games sometimes for KNTU or for NTTV and things like that. And then whatever sort of thing you could drum up on your own. When I was in school at KNTU, there was an AM radio station in town, 1440, KDNT. And now I believe that it is an Hispanic music station. It has been, I think, for well over 2 decades now. But in the late 80s and early 90s, it was a news talk station there in town. And so it would carry like Denton High School football or something like that, or other surrounding areas. So I spent some time working there and doing a little freelance high school football play-by-play and hopefully trying to develop my chops then. So that was my broadcast experience in my time at KNTU. And I volunteered for anything I could shift-wise at KNTU. I mean, do news. My first ever newscast, Paul, I don't know why I thought this was a good idea, but as a freshman, I thought, well, I'm going to sign up for some shifts to do the news at KNTU. And I decided I'd be Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 a.m.
Oh,
so, yeah. I mean, you're supposed to avoid 8 o'clock classes, right? And so I decided, well, let's just take that a step farther and do 7 a.m. newscasts. So August 28th, 1989 was my first day at North Texas and my first day on the radio, because that was the 7 a.m. Monday morning newscast at KNTU. I jazz DJ, sportscast, a little bit of everything in my time there. And it was, learned a lot from it, obviously, just, tremendous staff there and teachers. And I tell everybody when I come talk to Hank's, the sports broadcast class, make sure you do as much as you can at KNTU, because it's a fail-safe environment and gives you a chance to get reps and do it in a situation where if you stumble and fall, it's no big deal, because there's going to be somebody there to help pick you up and help you, get over the mistakes that you made and hopefully help you get better.
So when you left in '92, right? What was sort of the impetus for that? Did you get a regular gig? What led you that way?
Being young and impatient, and having a chance to get a regular gig. Somebody I knew from my relationship over at KDNT was a news director at a radio station in Oklahoma City. And, I felt like at that time in my life that, rightly or wrongly, that it was more important to start making a regular paycheck. And that was the decision that I made, and started going up there to Oklahoma City and moved up there and worked for a while, doing news broadcasting. It was a great experience, learned a lot, covered a lot of different and unique events. sent us out to cover severe weather one night in the Yukon, Oklahoma, hometown of Garth Brooks, Yukon, El Reno area of Oklahoma. I thought a tornado or a flash flood, one or the other, was probably going to sweep me right off the road in the station car. But fortunately, that didn't happen.
And you're a little bit of a weather buff too, right? At least that's what Mac Engel said in his story the other day.
Yeah, funny story about that is that, I to get some advanced geography hours to transfer here for my degree at North Texas, they have a meteorology class that I took, and I have like a real interest in that. And that's what Matt called me about. He didn't know that he was going to get this whole story about, lifelong, 30 years later finishing up a degree. He just thought, hey man, that's cool that you have an interest in meteorology and you decided to learn more about it. And that is very true. I do. But Oklahoma State has, like some schools do, self-paced classes. They have the extended learning. Different schools call it different things.
Right.
At Oklahoma State, they call it their Office of Individual Study. And there's probably about 20 different classes, some U.S. history survey courses, some other, I think they offer German and under this, what a weird foreign language to offer as an individual study course.
Right.
But they do. But I took this meteorology class, self-paced online. I started it in February and finished it up in the middle of June. And, I posted about that on Facebook, and Max saw that. And that's kind of what, ended up leading to him calling me and the rest of it. Or as Paul Harvey used to say, I know that's an old reference for people when it comes to the radio, but as Paul Harvey used to say, he called me about meteorology and at Oklahoma State, and now he knows the rest of
the story. That's right.
Yeah. So again, there's a lot of people who are watching this. It's like, what in the hell is he talking about? Who is Paul Harvey? But famous radio announcer for older guys like me and Paul.
Absolutely. Now, what led you to the ticket? I was at TCU when the ticket launched, and I had a delivery job and started listening from the beginning. But you were part of my favorite radio program ever, right? The Hardline in its glory days was just the best. How did you get to the ticket, and what was it like being a part of building what is really recognized as one of the most unique and really best radio stations in the country?
Well, when I was in North Texas, I would go to Ranger games frequently, and that's where I met Mike Reiner. Just on a KNTU press pass at the press box at Old Arlington Stadium, covering Ranger games. And so I knew Mike. We didn't know each other well, but he apparently took a liking to me as a young, eager college student. As I said, I went away and worked for a little while in Oklahoma City. I came back, and my next job was in 1993 at the Texas State News Network, a place that a lot of KNTU and North Texas alumni have worked at. It's affiliated with KRLD and does newscast and sportscast for small and medium market stations across the state of Texas. So I was there in 1993. And when the ticket started in 1994, late 93, I met with Mike, and he hired me a job to do the sports updates. If you listen to the station, what people would know as ticket tickers. Yeah. It was great to be there. I spent 7 years there, did updates, hosted shows as a fill-in guy, hosted shows on the weekend, did high school football play-by-play in SMU. And what it was like is, I would say that, it was a dream come true to get to work on a sports station in your hometown, the first one, to get to work around so many talented people, and get a chance to do what you really wanted to be doing. And I think the thing that I remember about it that's so unique is that those early days, I mean, we just had so much fun, not only on the air, but off the air. Everybody was young and building that chemistry and that brotherhood and the camaraderie. And so there would be a lot of fun times, fun happy hours and fun nights out on the weekend to talk about all the crazy things that were happening at the station, how much fun we were having, and how exhilarating it was. So there was a really great bond that developed between the people there. And, I spent 7 great years there. I certainly, there obviously are a long list of people, many of whom, of course, are affiliated with North Texas, who are far, far, far more instrumental to the station's success than my little tiny role was back in the day. But I'm proud to have had a part in it. And the main thing, of course, is that the exposure and the opportunity that is that I got there, put me on the map in the right way, that it propelled me for opportunities to get involved with the Mavs broadcast on a studio level, which then opened the door to ultimately doing play-by-play. So, much like I say, My career path never would have taken the path that it did were it not for my time at North Texas. That's absolutely 100% unequivocally true. And the same thing I would say about my time at the Ticket. I would never be fortunate enough to be in season 21 with Mavs broadcasting, either on radio or television, were it not for my time at the Ticket. That was a tremendous opportunity and tremendous exposure and life-changing for me.
I'm certain if you would have hung with it, you'd be hosting a show today. Did you, in your mind, always have your eye on a play-by-play job? Because, you hosted the Ender show, I remember. And, like I said, I have to think if you hung around, if that's what you wanted to do, you're talented enough, you could be hosting a show today. But you had your eye on a play-by-play job?
Yeah, play-by-play was always my interest, and I appreciate you saying that. One of the things I think that when I listen to the station now that was never my strong suit was that, those guys have just an incredible ability to live their life in such a way that they're always cognizant of things that are happening in the course of their day-to-day life that's going to make for great stories on the radio. And they do such an amazing, extraordinary job of that. And that's something I probably never could have grasped or never could have done. So I do appreciate you saying that, but I'm really very honest with myself and very self-aware of what my abilities are and aren't as it comes to that. And I don't know that being a show host ever would have been my thing. I don't think I would have been had I had to do it over a long period of time, day in, day out, been very successful at it. But what I wanted to do was play-by-play. I've always had a passion for it and a tremendous energy and enthusiasm about it. I hope it's noticeable on the air that rule number one of Followill broadcasting is if I don't sound like I give a crap about the game that I'm calling about, then how can I expect somebody sitting at home on the couch to give a crap about it? And I usually say it a little bit more colorfully than that, Paul, but excuse me. For purposes of the podcast, I cleaned it up a little bit.
I appreciate it.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But no, that was pardon me. That was what I wanted to do. Was what I always had a desire to do for a long time. And the things that I did at KNTU, of course, from a play-by-play standpoint, were reflective of that, and was fortunate that, it worked out here for an NBA team in my hometown. That aspect of play-by-play, especially doing it for 15 years on television now, far, far exceeds my wildest hopes and expectations. If you had told me in 1998 at the Ticket, hey man, Rudy Davalos, the athletic director in New Mexico, is going to call you in a year and you're going to go out to Albuquerque and be the radio, football, basketball voice of the Lobos for the rest of your career. It's like, hey man, sign me up. I would love that. But obviously, what I've been able to do with the Mavs and what that's propelled me to with FC Dallas and soccer on an international level for the Olympics, for NBC and Fox, and the World Cup, it's all been beyond my wildest dreams in terms of how that's all played out from a play-by-play perspective. I've been very, very fortunate.
What's been the high moment of your career in the play-by-play world?
I would say, the World Cup is the world's biggest sporting event, and that would be there. But honestly, I would say probably, other than just a long affiliation with the Mavs and how great they've been to me. As I said to a lot of people, Mark Followill's life is a whole lot different if he doesn't come across Mark Cuban at some point in time. I mean, he's been so good to me. And getting a chance to broadcast the finals on the radio, even though it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to in 2006. And so I was fully TV by 2011. So, wasn't involved in that level of broadcasting. But the one thing to me that stands out is for all of my life, Paul, dating back to whenever the U.S. Men's hockey team won in Lake Placid in 1980, and then watching, every day in the summer of 1984 as a 13-year-old, watching the success the U.S. had at the Olympics when it was in Los Angeles in 84. I've always had just an incredible fascination with that event, and had made some overtures and had, hoped for some opportunities in, 2008 and 2012, and those never materialized. And to get to do the, soccer for the Olympics in 2016, of all the things that I've done, they're all great. They're all unique. I treasure all those memories, but to be involved with that event, given my lifelong love for it, I mean, I would probably say if you made me point to one thing in my career that I'll look back on and want to watch the tapes from when I'm in the old broadcaster's home, when I'm 85 years old or something like that, it would be things from the Olympics in 2016. That was, an extraordinary time, and so fortunate and so lucky to get to be a part of one.
Well, such a cool career. When you get that degree from UNT, are you going to walk across the stage? They had a virtual commencement,
Yeah.
or things are a little weird right now. But let's assume things get back
Yeah.
to whenever you get 9 hours to go, I think.
Yeah.
When you get there,
Yeah.
what happens? Are you gonna walk? Are you wear the green cap and gown?
Oh, dude, that's certainly my plan, man. Yeah. I don't know that I'm almost 50 now, so the graduation party window probably has passed me by. If one happens, I'll send you an invite. But no, it probably won't get too crazy if it does. But so that window's passed me by. But yeah, I don't know what the NBA is going to look like in terms of a start time next year. But I think that the Mavs have been so good to me over the years. Even if there was a game conflict and I said I wanted to, be part of a ceremony, I think they probably would be pretty cool and pretty understanding about missing a game if that were the case. So that's certainly, after all this time, is my plan. Probably would, probably not ashamed to say, probably would get pretty emotional about it too, because it obviously is something that I wished had happened a long time ago, but I guess there's a saying somebody taught me a long time ago that everything in the world is as it should be. So if it should have happened a long time ago, it would have. It didn't. Life took me on another path, and here we are now, doing it many, many years later. And as I said, there's a lot of great things that I could say about it, but just having your desire to learn, the opportunity to do it, to learn things that you were interested in at one point of time but never pursued farther, to get a chance to do that and be immersed in that and have that side of you energized and exhilarated again. Yeah, that's been great. And so, of course, if it all works out, and we're in a sense of normalcy in life where it would allow for it, yeah, absolutely, I would love to be there and take part of that. It would be a really, really cool and, as I said, emotional experience.
Well, I think it's a great example for anybody to see that somebody's willing, especially somebody as successful as you, is willing to go back and to always be bettering themselves. So really cool stuff, Mark. We're so proud to have you as part of the Mean Green family, and thanks so much for joining us, especially as basketball is getting going again. And to our listeners, thanks for checking us out on the We Are North Texas podcast, and we'll talk to you soon.
UNT World is a special place filled with talented and dedicated students, faculty, and staff that do amazing things every day. With our heart in North Texas, we transform lives and create economic opportunity through education. We are North Texas. I'm Paul Corliss. Talk to you soon.